Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of NC-17. My name is Josh, and today we have another very special guest with us. We have filmmaker, uh, creator of the arts, just an awesome person all around. We got Michael Atkinson. I said that
How are
correctly,
you?
right? All right, how
Thank you
you
for having
doing?
me on. Yeah, I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm pretty good, pretty good. Uh, before we kind of get into the movies and the entertainment that, we all love, kind of take us back a little bit. When you were a child, no specific age, but what was some of your inspirations for wanting to get into the movie world and what really brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, so I've been like a movie nerd since I can remember, to be honest with you. I mean, even like after I learned to read, I remember one of the first books that I ever just started like reading on my own was an old 90s movie guide that was just sitting around the house. And I read it just back to cover, just the comedy section, the horror section, just reading these little mini reviews of movies. And, a lot of them were movies that, I had no way of seeing or I was too young to see. I'm sitting there reading reviews of movies like Blue Velvet and Christine and stuff like that, no way I'm ever going to be able to watch that for another 10 years, but just like that got me like familiar with films themselves, and it was cool to like read those reviews because it was like my way of kind of peeking into what different movies are like. And then watching movies. I remember when I was like getting to be like 10 years old, 11, stuff like that. I would go to the library a lot and just rent all these movies that I had heard about. That's when we got the internet and computer at my house and stuff like that. It's like early 2000s, and so I remember going on IMDb back when it was still like super old school and they had message boards and all that on there, and just ever since I was a kid, just always been massively super nerdy into movies and everything about them. Even beyond like horror movies are my sweet spot, but that's the stuff I like the most. But really, just all movies. Like I love every genre. So. Um, it was pretty early on that I decided that I wanted to be a director and actor and just tell stories. And I remember when I was a kid, I would always like write stories on my computer. I hadn't like figured out how to write scripts necessarily, so I would just kind of write them as stories and stuff like that. And my brain's always, ever since I was a kid, like just working on like different stories and coming up with different ideas and things like that. I've always been just super creative brained. And so once I, like finished school, all that, then it was like, yeah, I want to be a director, but like that doesn't seem super attainable. And it wasn't until I was actually reading a book by Kevin Smith, and he was talking about how he made Clerks on such a low budget. And basically, in like the intro of that book, I think the book's called Tough Shit. In the intro of that book, he was like, all the equipment that I filmed my first movie on, everybody now has in their pocket with their cell phones. And that was just like a mind blower moment for me. And was like, wow, like if Kevin Smith could make Clerks in the 90s with a super small budget and just with his friends, like what's my excuse? Like what's holding me back? And so at that point, I decided I wanted to start off by making short films and then um, made a couple of those, and then here we are today. I've just finished my first feature length film with Video Maniacs. So that kind of that's the story of me, I guess.
Uh, uh, so growing up, especially in the 2000s and, 'cause I'm an '80s baby, so like I grew up with all the Halloweens, Jasons, Freddy's, and stuff
Right.
like that. It seemed like every decade the horror genre either A had to rejuvenate itself with a fresh new take,
Yeah.
or they had to revitalize franchises that also again needed a fresh new take. So in the 2000s, a lot of people would argue that's where Scream and Wrong Turn and I Know What You Did Last Summer and stuff like that kind of started really taking the slasher to a different level.
Hmm.
So growing up in those times and kind of like just watching everything happen, it was a culture shock for a lot of people because a lot of people are like, like especially those '80s and '90s, kids that are now in their teens or 20s, they didn't know how to adjust quickly. So with each generation, would you say that the horror genre alone had to literally reinvent the entire genre or just different subgenres in the horror genre?
I mean, I think it's like I think subgenres because I think different time periods bring the popularity of different subgenres. Like you're saying, like all the slashers of like the 70s, 80s, and then all those like remakes, are kind of a subgenre of their own. You know, and growing up and seeing those, like it's odd because I'm a 90s baby, but like I have more so the taste profile, I think, of like an 80s baby and maybe it comes from me like reading old movie manuals and stuff like that, like, or guides, I mean, when I was a kid, like I've always been more interested in the generation of films before me than like the more modern stuff. And that's not to like discredit, like I really do enjoy Scream for what it's worth. And I like those remakes. I tend to prefer the originals, you know? But I think that like, my sweet spot is more like the kind of subgenre of like the movies that are being remade and stuff like that, like those original ones that kind of set that blueprint. But I think horror just as a genre is it's so I think that's why I get so into it because you can fit so many different genres within horror. Like you can have horror comedy, you can have a horror drama, movies like Hereditary or like a family drama that just happen to have ghosts in it.
Yeah.
So it's such a wild card of a genre. It's so interesting.
Oh, yeah. Uh, so let's kind of fast forward to the first time that you worked on a movie set, or whether it be short film, full feature
Mm.
film. What was that like? And did you find yourself kind of getting lost in everything, or was you fully, like prepared to be able to tackle whatever situation arose?
Um, I yeah, I guess because the first shorts I did, and even with my first feature, they've all been just filmed on my cell phone, edited in post to look more professional, that kind of thing. So everything is always really in the moment. Most of my stuff is filmed at home, and me and my wife are the actors on it. And then we just kind of try to make it as big as we can with what we have on hand. So with that, it's always felt really natural with filming. Like there was never a point where I was like overwhelmed, or I think it created a lot of self-doubt though. Like this is interesting to me, but is me at home with my wife and we're the only actors, is that going to be interesting to other people? And that took a lot of different takes and a lot of different like filming something, editing it, and then deleting it and doing something else, to try to figure out what style I can do within the limitations that I have, kind of a
Oh yeah,
thing.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, you also kind of touched on it. The way Kevin Smith made Clerks was, sometimes like everyone's like, the more money, the better the movie's going to be. Sometimes
Mm.
I think when you add more money, it adds more problems.
Yes.
You know,
I,
uh,
I'm a
okay,
Yeah, I'm a big believer that you do not need money to make a movie. I think all you need to make a movie is a good story and good characters, and the rest will figure itself out. Um, I've seen a lot of people over the years not follow their dreams, not do what they want to do, make movies, that kind of thing, because they don't have money. And you don't need money. You just have to figure out a creative way to shoot what you're trying to shoot, and you have to have a good story. If you don't have a good story, I mean, dude, you could have a $3 billion budget, but if you don't know your story and you don't have interesting characters, nobody's going to want to watch that. But in my opinion, if you have a great story with great characters, something that's engaging, people are going to be looking past maybe, that it's not filmed professionally. Maybe the audio is a little hard to hear. You got to turn it up a little bit. You're going to be so ideally, you're going to be so engrossed in that story that none of that matters, in my opinion.
oh yeah, no, I agree, I agree. Like I like to kind of reality is based on the perception of what you can do, you know,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
just take my first feature film, actually my first time making anything. Not there, we
Hmm.
that 2 hour movie. We filmed it in 8 days on a budget of $800.
That's
And
awesome.
that to me, like being a first time writer director, people are always going to say, and this is for anybody out there,
Mm,
Follow what you believe that you want to do, you know, like follow your dream,
absolutely.
you know,
Hmm.
and people such as yourself and, other independent actors and directors and stuff. If it weren't for you guys, people that are trying to get into this wouldn't have a way of doing it because you've paved the way for the independent upstarts to be able to start doing what they do, you know? And I think a lot of people kind of, especially the ones who've been doing it for a while, I think a lot of people kind of failed to remember that, you know? But I think the
Yeah.
independent scene is so we are such a strong community that we always want to see each other thrive, you know?
Oh,
Uh
I agree. I mean, that was something that blew my mind was the amount of support just right away, you know.
oh yeah.
Yeah, everybody wants to, help and be involved and help promote, and it's such a warm, inviting community, you know.
Oh yeah. Uh, so let's kind of go into a different part of the independence of just the movie scene in general. It's
Mhm.
casting. A lot of people, like you cast the people you think are going to do good, but then the ones who do great are the ones who very seldomly get the chance. Would you say
Yeah.
that's fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
You know, and I believe that we can write great stories, but we also have the right people telling these stories.
exactly. Yeah.
Like we have a mutual friend, uh, Anna Zayden, phenomenal
Hmm.
person.
Yeah.
She's in Video Maniacs.
Yeah.
So just kind of walk us through the way you do your casting. Do you write these characters with people set in mind, or do you do the whole audition and kind of, whoever you feel is going to fit the bill best?
I'm very loyal to I mean, I'm open to hearing out a lot of people and stuff like that, but once I find an actor or actress that I really like and enjoy working with, then I will come up with ideas of roles that are for them. And I like the idea of all my movies having the kind of same group of people, and that kind of thing because I feel like the people that I've been lucky enough to have be in my movies are super talented and have range and you know it's also like it's easier to write a character that like is like oh I like for example with Anna Zayden when I was coming up with that idea for Video Maniacs and her scene where she's going to be like the scream queen kind of reaction shot kind of a thing. I know she's got the perfect horror movie scream, so it was just like, oh, okay, I need a character that can do this, and she is the answer. um and she was in the previous short film, and she was a doctor, just in a brief scene. But that's just an example of like her range. Like she can kind of do the professional doctor who's like advising, and then screaming in the next movie, getting murdered by a chainsaw. It's one of those things like through like talking to people, and then also I had seen her in other in like Donald Farmer movies and stuff like that. I could just tell like she has range, and I actually felt like I felt super lucky when I reached out to her and was like, "Hey, I'm a no budget filmmaker, but like, would you want to be involved in this project?" And she wanted to, and that's the crazy thing too, with how warm and inviting of a community it is. Like, so many people just want to have fun making a movie with you and are willing to do it. And
Oh
it's
yeah.
great.
Oh yeah. So kind of walk us through your thought process of coming from going from doing short films to doing your feature film. Like, do you think one's harder to do than the other? And was that transition from short film to full feature film, was that a smooth transition, or was that a transition that you found kind of daunting at times?
Definitely daunting at times. With a short film, you're able to kind of just focus on, okay, here's a story that I can tell in 10 to 15 minutes, and it's pretty easy to get from point A to point B, very concentrated. You don't have to fill it out and flourish it with characters and things like that. Um, so when I had the idea for Video Maniacs, and it being an anthology and having other like other short films within it, in a way that was kind of a way to make it an easier transition from going to short films into a feature length film. And that was my thought process, was like, I don't know if I'm ready to tell a 90 minute to 2 hour story yet, but I have a lot of director friends who are amazingly talented,
Mhm.
and I would love to see what they could bring to my movie. So let's make a movie that is has a plot, has a wraparound segment like Creepshow style, but that also allows us to kind of make it like a mixtape of who's who in the no budget film community at the moment. So I'd like to think that it kind of rests right in between, being a cool mixtape of like other myself and other people who are out doing this no budget thing, but with a cohesive story around it to make it an anthology as well. Um, I'm working on a couple of things at the moment. One of them's another short. The other one is my first like non-anthology true feature length. And that's been even more daunting with just all this footage to like go through and edit and make sure that the story is hitting all the right notes over a longer time. Um, so I'm in the midst of working on that, but definitely doing Video Maniacs is like ripping the band-aid off in a way of like, okay, I can prolong a story for this length with, in this case with the help of other people's work as well. But this next one I'm working on, that's definitely a daunting task. It's been tough.
Oh yeah. And I'm a big fan of, like people who just go for it, because at the end of the day, if we don't, then when we're 80 years old, it's like we look back in our life, we don't want that, like we don't want to live a
Exactly.
life with regret, you know.
Yeah,
uh
100%.
so that being said, the independent scene, I think, in my personal opinion, that the independent scene is now thriving way better than Hollywood is thriving, you know.
Absolutely.
uh
Yeah.
and in doing so, I think, with movies like Iron Lung and Terrifier and all these independent films that are just booming right now, I think it's putting a little bit of extra pressure on especially some of the newer people, because they have these films that they have to, okay, this is the benchmark. How are we going to do this? I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would say that don't set a benchmark, because if you set a benchmark and you don't reach that benchmark, you're letting yourself down, you
No,
know?
I agree. Yeah.
And it, it's very seldomly that you get a Donald Farmer or an SJ Herman, I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many independent directors and producers and actors and actresses out there that they're doing phenomenal work, but most of the time they'd be lucky. Like most of the time, everyone goes on YouTube, Tubi, just streaming.
Yeah.
What are your hopes? I know that was a tangent. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I'm following you.
Yeah. What are your hopes for Video Maniacs and just the other films that you have planned? Do you
Mhm.
hope to potentially have them in movie theaters and video stores? Which, by the way, I'll say it on here for anybody who's going to be seeing this. I can actually get you in a video store here in Michigan, but it's completely voluntarily. If you want to send a video, I guess I could get it put into a video store. So, and people can
That's
rent
awesome.
it, and so, but it's completely voluntary. And yeah. But so, what are your hopes for Video Maniacs and just future projects you have?
Yeah, I definitely, I mean, I'm the type of person, I'm stuck in the past in a way, but I also want to acknowledge the future because it's a lot more positive to, even if you like, I don't love streaming all the time. I'm a huge, as you can tell, a huge proponent of physical media. A large portion of Video Maniacs is a love letter to physical media itself. So, you know, ideally, my stuff does well on DVD, on Blu-ray, VHS, that kind of thing. It's the kind of thing where people enjoy it so much that they want to own it on physical media, so they don't have to worry about what service is it streaming on. They just are like, dude, it's Halloween, let's watch Video Maniacs again. That movie was sick. Like that's what I go for. I want to make movies that are rewatchable, that are fun, that you connect with, kind of like cult classics in a way. I do want my stuff in theaters. I'm working on a couple things right now, trying to maybe get a couple showings of Video Maniacs. I've also submitted it to a few streaming services just recently, hoping that it gets on there because I want to do all that. I want to make the movie as publicly available as possible. But for myself, I would be more than happy just being a cult film director. I don't think like if every best case scenario worked out, I don't think I'd ever be the guy who is happy being like a, multi-millionaire filmmaker, that kind of thing, because it's just, I like really homegrown stuff. I like really, just that kind of like intimacy in a way of like making movies with your friends and making something memorable, focusing on the story, not focusing on the budget, the this, the that, all the crazy stuff that comes with big Hollywood. None of that interests me. I'd rather make some cool stuff that people remember for a long time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree 100%. You know, it's it's very, like it's rare that you find those gems that are like, how many times can someone watch this one film,
Yeah.
and yourself being a very avid movie collector, I can see, and like you stated, I'm
Yeah.
one myself, but
Yeah.
with independent films, sometimes certain subgenres in horror or even comedy or drama or action can get saturated with the same kind of stuff over and over. So how do you get it to where your films stand out from other people's films that are similar to yours?
I think I'm big on um with story, as I keep saying, that's like the most important thing to me. Like if even if it's a story that's been told 1,000 times, I heard this great quote somewhere along the way. Even if it's a story that's been told a million times, it's never been told by you. So that should never hold you back. If it's a story that like, okay, I'm making a slasher movie, that kind of thing. But that's what I do is like, what can I, if I'm working within a subgenre, what can I do to tell this story in a way that is uniquely me? Because at the end of the
Okay.
day, I'm the filmmaker and I'm the one who's got to live with the movie for better or worse. Do I regret doing this? When I'm rewatching it, um, could I have made better choices and all that kind of stuff? So I try to trust my instincts and tell a movie that's true to me, and hopefully in making a film that's genuine, people are able to get on my wavelength as opposed to making something that is like, you know, I'm making this for this audience. I'd rather make a movie that is for me and genuine, and hopefully that comes through in the film so that that audience finds my film and is like, "Oh, I feel the same as you. Like I relate to this movie." You know.
Oh yeah,
I think that's where a lot of like Hollywood gets it wrong is they try to make movies that appeal to these mass markets and stuff. And you don't want to be too deep into a niche, but it's like at the same time, if you're making a movie to try to appeal to everyone, you're actually appealing to no one.
exactly, exactly. Now, what would you say would be some of the obstacles yourself that you had to overcome just in the entire time you've been making films? What would be like some of the obstacles you've had to overcome? And is there one specific thing that kind of almost made you not even be able to want to do it anymore?
Um, well, I haven't hit anything that's made me not want to do it anymore. There's been days, of course, where I'm like, I told myself I'd work on it today. I'm not feeling it. I'm tired, that kind of thing. I think if I had to choose an obstacle, the biggest obstacle I have is having a day job on top of making a movie. I'd rather just focus in on making the movie and not have to worry about going to work in the morning. Because that's tough. And then, the whole day at work, I'm just daydreaming about, I need to edit this. I want to film this. I want to talk to this person and see if they're down to do this. Like, I'm so consumed by movies all day that like work is kind of more stressful than it should be because I'm like, I don't want to think about this over here. I'm thinking about my movie right now. So I guess that's the biggest obstacle. When I'm making movies, I'm in the zone. I'm loving it. Sometimes there's days when I just want to hang out and watch TV. I think every artist is like that to a degree. Sometimes it's really good to just hang out and not worry about pushing yourself to make art. And then that's when the great ideas come to you. If you're just kind of hanging out and then all of a sudden you get a lightning bulb moment and thing like that. So I guess that's my biggest obstacle with filmmaking is, um, I'd like to be making enough from my films and from the art that I'm creating to where it's sustainable for me and my family so I can just focus on that and not have to worry about the normal grown-up life, you know?
Oh yeah. Uh, what would you say would be some of the best moments you've had from the time you started making films to now? What would be, like if you, and again, if you have one specific moment that stands out as like a big achievement of yours, but what were some of the best moments you've had thus far?
Just, I mean, meeting people as a general sense, like meeting people in this community, collaborating on projects. I mean, Video Maniacs is very collaborative. Um, I've met so many people, even beyond the people that were involved in that movie, just so many cool people that um, I love it, like just meeting all these like-minded people, helping them with their films and that kind of thing. One of my biggest, one of the biggest things I'm thankful for is, there's a filmmaker named Janice Click, and he makes wild movies. Like he made Shrek Crack, he made just all kinds of crazy stuff. A movie called Fish Piss. That's how I first found out about his movies. He had that movie on Troma Now. It's called Fish Piss, and it's as crazy as it sounds. But I met him. He's super deep into the filmmaking community, and I feel like he's been able to help me elevate my stuff so much just by giving me tips and you know letting me know things that he knows now that he learned through the trade and all that kind of stuff, meeting people through him, like through our friendship. Like I've met a lot of people, and it's not to say that he's the only one, but I feel like him and I's friendship has really grown into a real great like artistic collaboration with things, and just learning with each other along the way. He screened my film Video Maniacs at his film festival. It won an award. That's probably my proudest moment yet, was winning an award for my work. That felt crazy to me.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, there's so many, it's hard to pick one great moment. I mean, there's so many things going on every day that I'm just so thankful for with my movies. I've met so many great, cool people, you know. And I just try to give the love back by like, hey, you've helped me so much. Like, what can I do to help you? What can I do to help promote your film? Like, do you want to get a film inside my film? Do you want to put a fake trailer in the beginning? Like, how can we lift each other up? I'm very big on that, lifting each other up.
Oh yeah. And that seems to be again what makes independent stand apart from Hollywood, because Hollywood, let's face it, if you ain't got the money, they don't got the time for you.
Exactly.
Independent film, like let's take this podcast for instance. This podcast will never be about me. This podcast is to help bring in people who want, to push their products, their movies, their music, whatever, and
Mm.
it is that need to want to help people that makes this community strong, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And like I said, I've been doing this podcast for 3 years, and this will never be about me. When I'm making a movie, it's never about me. It's about what can if I can make if this can be a stepping stone for someone to get to the next level, I'm cool. I've done my job,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And in that aspect, my hat's off to you, because I even though this is our first time having a conversation face to face, I do follow people, not stalkerish, but I do follow people,
Right.
because I know that you you have to be able to understand where they're coming from before you can actually have a conversation. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I'm the same way. Yeah.
So for that, I'm always going to be grateful, and I'm always going to want to help people. And you know, at the end of the day, you're doing a phenomenal job, and no one can take that away from you. So,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
oh yeah. Uh, so kind of take us to Video Maniacs. Like when you were coming up with the idea of putting this film together in more of a creep show kind of way,
Yeah.
uh, what would you say was the number one driving force of getting this particular film to be your feature film debut?
I think, well, I've had the title Video Maniacs in my brain for a long time. When I was a kid, that was a video rental store that was just down the street from my house. And I just I love that name. It just sounds so cool. I have a lot of fond memories of going to that place. In the movie, I actually use a cup that's from the actual Video Maniacs from the '90s back in the day. Just love that name. And so right away when I started making movies, I'm like, I want to make a movie called Video Maniacs. And a lot of the time that's what it starts with me is I'll start with the title and then I'm like, okay, what does that title mean? Like, what could that movie be about? That kind of thing. And then I just on my filmmaking journey, I met so many cool people making amazing movies that I just feel like aren't being seen. Like Janice Click, like I said, is making amazing stuff. David Dawson is making amazing stuff. James Balsamo is making amazing stuff. Bob Freeville. So like all these people, and so as I'm kind of coming up with like, oh, I want to make a movie about what it was like to rent movies, what it was like to have physical media and that kind of thing, but also set it in the modern day where we kind of like it's okay to love the past, but we have to accept the future. And that's kind of the big like theme in the movie that I try to kind of put as like an underlying throughout is like the past is so much fun, but we are in the present. And sometimes that sucks. Um,
uh,
and so, coming up with the movie, I'm like, okay, I want to make a movie about this. And then one day it just clicked like, oh, I've seen so many amazing films by these amazing directors who are kind of in my same, league. Like, what if I did an anthology movie that is just essentially a movie night simulator? Like you're watching movies that they just got and rented, and they're going to watch them that night. And then each movie is a short film from a really talented filmmaker. And then in order to get more people involved, because I know I only had a certain amount of slots, um, then I'm like, okay, well, I'll put fake trailers in it, and then I can have even more filmmakers submit those fake trailers. And then once I started like kind of going on the project, I actually got a lot of interest from people who I didn't even know were interested in making movies. Like I have a friend from way back in the day, like back in high school, and they had started making movies. Her name's Rachel Barr, and I didn't even realize that she had like started making movies until we had started talking again and I saw some of her work, and I'm like, "You got to be in Video Maniacs. Let me tell you all about Video Maniacs." Same thing with my cousin. He is working with me on like editing a lot of my newer projects, but him and I like we're basically like brothers. Like all we do is talk about movies. We love movies together and all that. And then I start talking about Video Maniacs. He's like, "Well, maybe I could do a short film." I'm like, "Dude, yes, do a short film." My wife, she is always acting in my film. She's like my biggest support system with all my creative endeavors. She even got in on the hype. She's like, "Oh, what if I did a little thing in there?" I'm like, "Yeah, do a little thing in there." So it just kind of grew into what started as an idea of just a singular vision of like, oh, I want to make a movie that's a love letter to films. It kind of grew into like, oh, let's get a bunch of people who love movies and let's all make a movie about how much we love movies together. And that's even more of a love fest for movies.
oh yeah,
So that's the big thing is that movie's just the biggest I love you to film ever that I could ever do.
oh yeah. Uh, so there's, I do want to touch up on it, and it's a very short part of every segment lately. Uh, there's a big controversy going on right now: AI versus human.
Mhm.
Uh, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but is there a specific stance you make, or are you cool with either, or is it like, one is the devil and one is the angel?
Um, I definitely, it's something I've thought a lot about. I think it's very tempting to use because it is so available, but then there's also the long-term consequences of it that I've, like heard about and stuff like that, which is it makes me second guess it. I think when it first came out, I was very like, oh, this is an interesting tool, you know? And I think even so I guess I would say I'm 90% against it. Like I've heard about movies that are being entirely AI generated.
Mm,
No, not for me. I hardcore disagree with that. Um, I think that if you're using it as a tool to make yourself more creative, I'm okay with it. I just think that if you're doing it, you should be very aware of the long-term consequences that it could present. But there have been a couple of uses of AI in the films that I've done, but it's just strictly been a tool. It's never been a thing to supplement creativity. Because I believe that if you're supplementing creativity, you're destroying the reason why we do this. You know, if it's helping you to create something on your own that's creative, then use it, but use it with extreme caution. It's like the whole with great power comes great responsibility. Know what you're doing, know what you're utilizing. But maybe if you're trying to come up with an idea for some kind of thing in the movie and you're having a hard time visualizing it, I would be lying if I said I never did that. But I try in terms of in the film, I try to steer as 100% away from it as I can, with acknowledging that there have been a couple of times where I'm like, okay, this helped me conceptualize, so I'm gonna go for it. So I guess 90% it's the devil.
Oh yeah, and I just lately I've been bringing that up with the directors and actors and actresses because it's like, you know, again, like you said, if it's a tool that you use 5 or 10% of the time, there's no
Mhm.
harm in that,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
But you can clearly see who's doing what, and I'll leave it at
Yeah.
that.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I know people who are 110% against it, like, get that away from me, that is Satan. And I respect the hell out of that. Like,
Oh yeah,
I'm in a way, I'm a little jealous of it. Like, I wish I had the self-control because it's so tempting. It's so there. You know what I mean? So it's like,
oh yeah,
I that's how ideally I want to be 100% get that away from me. But, I'd be lying if I said there was a couple times where I'm like, all right, I'm using it.
oh yeah. Uh, so let's kind of go away from the movie aspect of the entertainment business for a moment and kind of go music, because especially in the horror genre, I think unless you're making a musical, in the horror genre, music is its own character.
Yeah.
So with your films, do you prefer more of a, like a death metal, or are you more along the lines of a methodical, like music that builds up and keeps building into, you're finally at the point and then it just explodes?
Yeah. Music is a huge tool in my movies. I actually, before I started making movies, um, I was in I mean, I'm still in a punk band and we do some metal stuff. My wife and I make music together, like acoustic stuff. So going into making movies, I already had a huge back catalog myself, plus knowing a bunch of people who are doing, their own music and their own bands and stuff like that, just from networking and playing gigs with people and stuff like that. So music is like my second love to movies. So with that, when I'm making a movie, I never want the music in the movie to be distracting. I just want it to be enhancing. I am a
Uh,
big fan of like needle drops in movies. Like one of my favorite filmmakers is Quentin Tarantino. He always has the best soundtracks in my opinion. So I take a lot
mhm.
of inspiration for like moments like that where like, oh, here's a cool song to put here that's memorable. But with it being my stuff, I want to make sure that I'm not, limiting myself by using somebody else's copyrighted music. So it all has to come from me or people I know or people I have permission from.
Uh,
But I've just been very lucky to know a lot of people who are making music. And in terms of putting it in the movie, I never actually know what the sound of the movie is going to be like until I'm in that editing process. And I'm like, okay, this song would be cool here. Like when I was making my second feature or my second short film called Imaginary Terry, when I was filming it, I was kind of picturing like a more kind of like drony, sound effects kind of a thing, like kind of like Lynchian, like noises and stuff like that. But as I
uh,
was making it, I'm like, a lot of these metal songs that I have lying around are way better in this movie than the droning sound effects. So like, like I kind of as I go, it's almost like the movie reveals itself to me. As I'm going, I'm like, oh, okay, this song works perfect here, and this song works perfect here. Another thing I'm big on that's kind of become like a little bit of a style thing for me. A couple people have like called it out, been like, "Oh, that's a real Michael Atkinson thing to do." Is I kind of use death metal as a jump scare.
oh yeah,
In most of my movies, there's a scene where things are calm and serene, and then there's just a whole lot of screaming. I don't love death metal, to be honest with you. Like I like it. It's decent, but it's not something I listen to casually. But I feel like if you were to watch my movies, you would think I'm a huge death metal fan because each of my films features at least one sequence that just goes nuts.
oh yeah. Uh, so let's kind of go into uh the best way I can say it is let's go into creating your own genre
Mhm.
because a lot of people are like, if you're doing horror, slasher, demons, monsters, zombies, whatever. But do you feel with what you're doing, you're making your own kind of genre in the horror industry?
In a way, yeah. I mean, for me to say it out loud, like, yes, I do, that makes me feel like maybe I'm being a little like cocky and be like, oh, I'm making something new. But I mean, also to, give credit, like, I feel like me and all these other independent horror filmmakers, we are paving the way in a sense because we've decided we're not going to go and do a studio thing. We're not going to try to move to Hollywood. We're going to make a movie. And when you're making any kind of art, you put yourself into it, and everybody's a unique individual. So it's always going to be your voice. Like, I like when I'm watching my movies back, I'm like, okay, this movie is basically like if you put Kevin Smith, David Lynch, and Quentin Tarantino into a weird horror blender. And that's just because those are my favorite filmmakers. So of course that's the kind of styles that are going to come out of me, you know. So, in a way, like, when you watch one of my movies, you're kind of uniquely getting that. They all fit into the broader sense of low budget, no budget horror. But every no budget film director, they have their own voice and own style. And like I said, I never started making movies with the idea of like this is my style. It just kind of revealed itself as I was making movies. Like I said, with like that death metal work, I'm like, oh, I've done that in like 3 movies, so that's a style thing now at this point. Like I didn't plan on that. I'm sure Quentin Tarantino was the same way. He probably didn't plan on having every movie having 70s music. It just sounded really good in Reservoir Dogs, and then he did it in all the rest of them, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. Uh, Tarantino, I will say, is a phenomenal director. Uh,
Yeah.
I my favorite Tarantino movie is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That's just me.
Me too. No, that's mine
Uh,
too. That's my favorite movie of all time, even. I love that movie.
uh, it's up there in my top five. My favorite movie of all time is Return of the Living Dead, just because I love running
Classic.
zombies and talking zombies. So,
Yeah, that's a classic. I love that film.
yeah. Uh, so let's kind of go to budgets.
Mhm.
You know, because I hear I hear you mention quite a few times, like low to no budget.
Yeah.
Do you feel with before even crowdfunding and everything like that? Do you feel that going into this, even if you don't, like have the money you need, this film's going to be made one way or the other?
Absolutely. Yeah. Ideally, with most of my projects, as I'm making it, I'm thinking like, oh, if I had more money, I would do this. I think that that's a natural thing, but there's nothing that's going to hold me back from telling my story. So if I don't make any money or, from the last project, or I just don't have any money currently, I'm just going to figure out a way to tell the story that I want to tell in a cheaper way that's more realistic to what I have, my
Oh yeah,
next film actually is a big, large scale idea that I've had for years, but to do it as a normal story, it involves like some sci-fi elements and stuff like that. So to do it as a normal story would require a lot of money. I would, if I had the money, I would do it with like practical effects, all that kind of stuff. But none of that's cheap, getting good, like, people that work practical effects on your movie and stuff like that, they charge a pretty penny, and they deserve to. I mean, they're crazy talented. But
oh yeah,
so my workaround for that is I'm telling the story as a mockumentary. So that way I can just rely on found footage, on interviews to tell what's going on, like that kind of thing. So it's making for me, it's I'm gonna make my movies no matter what holds me back, that movie's gonna come out. And maybe it's not my original vision because my original vision didn't work out, but in some way or another, that story is gonna be told, you know.
oh
Um,
yeah.
but I'm, as much as I am a no budget filmmaker, if I did get my hands on a budget, I would be stoked. I wouldn't spend it on just my thing. It's the same as like some people are pro AI, some people are anti AI. I'm super anti CGI. Do not like it at all whatsoever. So if I had a budget, it would all be spent on the best practical effects that money can buy.
Oh yeah.
um, but yeah,
Yeah. There seems to be a common denominator between I will go as far as to say practical effects and CGI. The common
Yeah.
denominator is money.
Mhm.
So, albeit the independent scene is thriving, the newer people, the people who are on a no to no budget, I think they're more creative. I mean, like I think
Absolutely.
everyone's creative, but I think the more creative people are the ones who get their story out there with no ramifications, whether they have raised the money or not.
Yeah.
You know, but I will say though, it's definitely difficult if you don't have the money.
It is. It's very difficult. Yeah. It
Yeah.
takes a lot longer than it should sometimes.
Oh yeah. But
I announced Video Maniacs like a full year and a half before it actually finally came to fruition, just because it was so like getting everything together, making sure that it's all coming together. Like it's tough.
oh yeah. Yeah, it's I mean the in today's entertainment world, true definition is dog eat dog.
Hmm.
You know, like you got the each tier is just different,
Yeah.
and I think that sometimes those lines get a little bit blurred because some of the more influential, I'll say it like that,
Hmm.
people who can keep putting out, semi to larger budget movies and stuff like that. I think the realization is starting to set in that sometimes you have to go small,
Yeah.
and I think that realization is finally starting to set in with some people. But I will go on record right now. Every single short film, every single independent film I've seen since I've been watching independent films has been phenomenal. All the actors, directors, actresses, producers, I'll even go as far as to say the boommen, everybody who's doing the independent scene is doing it the right way. May not be for some others, but still, they're still doing it their way.
Yeah.
And I think that as a whole, as long as we keep doing what we're doing, we will soon become the Hollywood, and Hollywood will soon become the independence.
Absolutely. I mean, it happened in the 90s. It's going to happen again, right? I mean,
Oh yeah,
but Kevin Smith went out on a limb and made Clerks, and then all of a sudden there was an explosion of that kind of movie. Like Hollywood always goes to what they can see bubbling under and what's going on. And, ourselves, low budget, no budget horror filmmakers, limitations breed creativity so much. I mean, even in like major Hollywood films, I mean, the reason why Jaws is such a masterpiece is because the shark wasn't working half the time. So it forced Spielberg to be more creative and shoot it more creatively in spite of that. And even though it's on a much smaller scale, those are the same limitations that you and I face every day making movies, and forces us to be more creative. And more creative always 100% of the time means a better movie,
oh
in
yeah,
my opinion.
oh yeah. We're getting near the end of the show. I do want to give you a few moments to where you can. Actually, before I do that, let me ask you: what advice would you give to anyone trying to get into this industry, whether it be in front of the camera, behind the camera, working on the crew? However, what advice would you give to anyone trying to get into the industry?
My biggest advice that I tell everybody is just do it. Rip the band-aid off. There, you have no excuse. Whatever you think is stopping you from doing what you want to do. And this isn't just movies. This is everything. Anything artistic or any job goal you have, there is nothing holding you back but yourself. So once you realize that and you just go for it, maybe it's not the budget that you wanted to make a movie, make that movie, tell that story, get it in the bag so you can work on your next one and work on your next one. And that's the biggest thing is I think it's a very human tendency to uh maybe because of anxiety, you tell yourself like, oh, I can't do this, or I can't do that yet. And I think that that's just anxiety messing with you and telling you that you can't. You totally can, especially with all the technology that we have, everything that we have access to. The only person holding you back is yourself if you are saying that you can't do something. It can always be done. There's always a way to figure it out. if a dummy like me has been able to make movies, meet all these really cool people, and do all these really cool things, there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be a cool dummy like me.
Well, I would venture to say you're not a dummy. You're good. You're a decent dude. You're a good dude.
Thank
So,
you.
you know, uh, so we are coming toward the end of the show, but I do want to give you a moment to plug your socials where people can reach out to you if you want to. That's entirely up to you.
Yeah,
Where they can see your films, where they can purchase your films, and just plug whatever you would like to plug right now.
thank you. Video Maniacs is obviously the one I'm plugging away on. It's the new one. This is the DVD, and this is available on my Etsy, which you can find that link in my Instagram bio. Instagram is where I'm most active. That's where I'm doing a lot of my things. I'm talking about my new projects, all that kind of stuff. So, if you want to get in touch with me, feel free to message me on Instagram. I'm very active on there every day. Um, I love just meeting new film fans, and in my bio, I've got the links to my previous work as well. I don't have any right next to me to use as an example, but I have more DVDs of my films and stuff like that. So if you want to check those out, um, if you want to, just check out my movie, but maybe you can't afford to buy a DVD, let me know. I'll hook you up with a screener. I just want people to see my stuff, and I want to show the love of movies. So hit me up. Let's talk movies. Some cool stuff that I got going right now is I'm producer on the next couple Ricky Glore films, NKY films. They did Sweetmeats. Um, they're a phenomenal crew. And he is a hilarious filmmaker. Like the movie he made, Sweetmeats, it's like cannibal comedy. And it's like a cannibal horror musical comedy. It's awesome. I've been a fan of it, and so I'm actually a producer on his next couple. He's doing Casually Cool and Truly Trudy. I'm a producer on both, and we are just needing an additional push on Indiegogo to get those to come to fruition. He's making movies at a much larger scale than I am, so he needs a budget to make those dreams come true and make the best movie he can. So any support we can get, we would love to make sure that those movies happen. And that Indiegogo is in my Instagram bio as well. I'm making a lot of movies at the moment. I'm editing a movie for another filmmaker. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but that's coming along. I've got 4 projects that I'm directing that I'm working on right now. So if you want to follow me, definitely now's the time because I'm running around like a chicken with its head cut off, working on a bunch of different things.
Uh, uh, that seems to be what a lot of people are doing right now is like some would say overloading the work. I would say making sure you're setting your future up. So,
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
but I do want to thank you for coming on. You've been a phenomenal guest. You've been
Thank
an
you.
all-star, rock star, all kinds of stars except for a falling star. So,
Well, thank you
you
so
know,
much for the opportunity. It was great talking to you.
oh yeah, likewise, it was my pleasure. And I always tell everybody, once you've been on NC-17, you have a home with us. Anytime you want to come on, whether it be to promote movies, talk about movies, or say, Josh, you got a boogie in your nose. I clean it out every day, though. So you're more than welcome to come back on anytime, my friend.
All right. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're most welcome. Everybody, till next time, stay NC-17.